The entire scope of the natural world displays an astonishing degree of intricate complexity and stunning beauty that truly reveals much about our Heavenly Father and His design. The concept of design, as observed in nature, can be interpreted from one of two possible perspectives: design as understood through mechanical engineering and manufacturing, or design as understood through art and beauty. This video seeks to explore both perspectives and the critically important relationship between the two. A simple Google search will generate the following definition for design: purpose, planning, or intention that exists or is thought to exist behind an action, fact, or material object. It is easy to appreciate design in nature from an engineering perspective by recognizing the sophisticated array of interconnected biological components that are present in every form of life. This becomes even more apparent when considering that every form of biological tissue, organ, and bone is manufactured from an exceedingly complicated set of digital instructions that are encoded into every strand of DNA present in every living cell. Award-winning science writer and former science editor for Newsweek, Peter Gwynne, embellished on this fact by explaining, "Each of those 100 trillion cells functions like a walled city. Power plants generate the cell's energy. Factories produce proteins, vital units of chemical commerce. Complex transportation systems guide specific chemicals from point to point within the cell. Sentries monitor the outside world for signs of danger. Disciplined biological armies stand ready to grapple with invaders. A centralized genetic government maintains order." In fact, to further underscore the engineering aspect of design, biologists actually identify many of the elaborate microscopic structures functioning inside each cell as cellular machines. These sophisticated nano-sized machines often include a great many essential parts that are all engineered together in such a way that makes it impossible for the structure as a whole to have formed gradually by small incremental changes, as is suggested by evolution. Well-known cellular biologist and critically acclaimed author Michael Behe has developed a concept regarding this fact that he has labeled irreducible complexity. Behe has written extensively about this idea and how it applies to our understanding of the origins of cellular machines. In an article for the New York Times, Behe wrote, "I believe that Darwin's mechanism for evolution doesn't explain much of what is seen under a microscope. Cells are simply too complex to have evolved randomly. Intelligence was required to produce them." The article goes on to say, Darwin's theory encounters its greatest difficulties when it comes to explaining the development of the cell. Many cellular systems are what I term irreducibly complex. That means the system needs several components before it can work properly.
I remember the first time I looked in a biochemistry textbook and I saw a drawing of something called a bacterial flagellum with all of its parts in all of its glory. It's had a propeller and the hook region and the drive shaft and the motor and so on. I looked at that and I said, that's an outboard motor. That's designed. That's no chance assemblage of parts.
Behe's reaction was not surprising. For the molecular motors that drive bacteria through liquid, each depend upon a system of intricately arranged mechanical parts. These parts come into focus when portions of a cell are magnified 50,000 times. Biochemists have used electron micrographs like this one to identify the parts and three-dimensional structure of the flagellar motor. In the process, they have revealed a marvel of engineering on a miniaturized scale.
Howard Berg at Harvard has labeled it the most efficient machine in the universe. These machines, some of them are running at 100,000 RPMs and are hardwired into a signal transduction or sensory mechanism so that it's getting feedback from the environment.
And even though they're spinning that fast, they can stop on a dime. It only takes a quarter turn for them to stop and shift directions and start spinning 100,000 RPM in the other direction.
And just like outboard motors on motorboats, it has a large number of parts which are necessary for the motor to work.
The bacterial flagellum, 2 gears, forward and reverse, water-cooled, proton motive force. It has a stator, it has a rotor, it has a U-joint, it has a drive shaft, it has a propeller, and they function as these parts of machines. It's not convenient that we give them these names. That's truly their function.
Since its discovery, scientists have tried to understand how a rotary motor could have arisen through natural selection. As yet, they have failed to offer any detailed Darwinian explanation. To see why, we must understand a feature of molecular machines known as irreducible complexity.
Irreducible complexity was coined by Mike Behe in describing these molecular machines. Basically what it says is that you have multi-component parts to any given organelle or system in a cell, all of which are necessary for function. That is, if you remove one part, you lose function of that system.
The idea of irreducible complexity can be illustrated by a familiar, non-biological machine, a mousetrap. The trap is composed of 5 basic pieces: a catch to hold the bait, a strong spring, a thin bent rod called the hammer, a holding bar to secure the hammer in place, and a platform upon which the entire system is mounted. If any one of these parts is missing or defective, the mechanism will not work. All components of this irreducibly complex system must be present simultaneously for the machine to perform its function, catching mice. Irreducible complexity also applies to biological machines, including the bacterial flagellar motor.
All told, there are about 40 different protein parts which are necessary for this machine to work. And if any of those parts are missing, then either you get a flagellum that doesn't work because it's missing the hook or it's missing the drive shaft or whatever, or it doesn't even get built within the cell.
In evolutionary terms, you have to be able to explain how you can build this system gradually when there's no function until you have all those parts in place.
An article on the Intelligent Design and Evolution Awareness Center's website summarizes irreducible complexity. Michael Behe asserts that the complicated biological structures in a cell exhibit the exact same irreducible complexity that we saw in the mousetrap example. In other words, they are all or nothing. Either everything is there and it works, or something is missing and it doesn't work. As we saw before, such a system cannot be constructed in a gradual manner. It simply won't work until all the components are present, and Darwinism has no mechanism for adding all the components at once. As noted previously, there are over 40 different protein parts which must work together in harmony for this unimaginably small outboard motor to propel the bacteria. And if any of these parts were missing, the entire biological machine would lose all function. But to fully appreciate the staggering complexity of this sophisticated propulsion system, we must try and comprehend the infinitesimal scale in which this machine operates. Using electron microscopes, scientists have measured the thickness of the cell membrane in which the bacterial flagellum is seated to be approximately 8 nanometers thick. But exactly how tiny is a nanometer?
Let's make the almost inconceivable nano world conceivable. The naked eye can see the diameter of a human hair. That's 1/10 of a millimeter, or 100,000 nanometers. To understand the small, we're going to scale it up to skyscraper proportions. And return to our human hair and blow it up to the size of the Empire State Building. A typical human cell, say a red blood cell, would rise to the 10th floor. A bacteria cell, the 3rd floor. Working down our scale, a run-of-the-mill protein molecule would be the same height as a small dog, about 1.5 feet. And a nanometer, on our Empire State scale, it's less than 1/4 inch. That's about the size of 5 microscopic atoms placed end to end.
Obviously, when we see an outboard motor operating to propel a boat through a body of water, we inherently understand that machine is the product of intelligence. We instinctively know the multiple complicated inner working parts were designed, engineered, manufactured, and assembled by intelligent beings. Thus, it stands to reason when we see an outboard motor measuring only 8 nanometers functioning to propel a bacterium through cellular fluid, those multiple complicated inner working parts must have been designed, engineered, manufactured, and assembled by an intelligence far superior to our own. However, the bacterial flagellum is only one of a great many irreducibly complex nano-sized machines scientists have discovered. There are numerous sophisticated manufacturing processes taking place every minute in every cell that demonstrate design just as clearly. The kinesin linear motor protein is a minuscule transportation machine that delivers protein bundles by literally walking across the many microtubule pathways linked throughout each cell. The ATP synthase enzyme is a microscopic electric rotary motor that constantly assembles and distributes individual molecules of ATP, the primary energy source for fueling all cellular functions. DNA transcription and translation is a staggeringly complicated process in which the detailed instructions embedded into strands of DNA are unwound, decoded, and copied. These transcribed instructions are then transported through a series of remarkably complex machines that assemble long sequences of individual amino acids into protein chains, which are then folded into incredibly intricate and specific shapes. These folded proteins become the basic building blocks for all of the various biological structures and tissues required of any living organism. Even more fascinating is the fact that a great many of these tiny machines and procedures are interdependent upon one another to function. Each cell is a marvelously engineered symbiotic chemical factory in which all the moving parts are choreographed to operate together in unison. In addition to its engineering definitions, the word design can also carry many artistic connotations. Dictionary.com includes among its definitions to plan and fashion artistically or skillfully, to plan and fashion the form and structure of an object, work of art, decorative scheme, etc., and organization or structure of formal elements in a work of art or composition. In the same way that the bacterial flagellum and countless other nano-sized cellular machines demonstrate that the Most High is an infinitely wise engineer, his creation also reveals that he is a stunningly skillful artist as well. Perhaps the most conclusive examples of artistic design in nature are found in the numerous examples of animal camouflage and mimicry. The peppered moth has for many years been touted as an iconic example of evolution in action. After the surge of the Industrial Revolution, when trees were being covered by the soot of nearby factory emissions, these white speckled moths became easy targets for hungry birds. The contrast of the light-colored moths against the darkening trees made them easy targets. Over time, natural selection did act upon this species and allowed the genetic variability already programmed into the moth's DNA to produce new generations with darker colors. These darker peppered moths became better suited to the changing environment and allowed them to survive. While this is a textbook example of genetic adaptation, it does nothing to provide evidence for one kind of animal gradually changing into another kind of animal. However, when these moths are viewed in their natural habitat, the effectiveness of their camouflage is clear. The speckled sand dab is a species of flatfish closely related to the flounder and halibut that is found primarily in the eastern Pacific Ocean. These unique fish actually begin their life swimming upright with one eye on each side of their head. As they begin to grow and develop, however, they gradually start to lean to the right. Oddly enough, both of their eyes migrate to the left side of the body, which allows the adult fish to swim parallel with the bottom of the ocean floor, where its convincing camouflage allows it to go practically unnoticed. This species, which will sometimes bury itself in the silt and sand of the ocean floor, is also equipped with a remarkable ability to change and alter its color and patterning to better conceal itself from predators. The great horned owl is a beautiful example of predator camouflage. These nocturnal hunters are the most widely distributed owls in North America, having a habitat range that extends from northern subarctic North America down to the southernmost tip of South America. There is significant variation in the coloring of the great horned owl's plumage, ranging from red to brown to gray. Additionally, there can be regional differences in coloration of the birds. For example, great horned owls in northern snowy subarctic ranges are typically more whitish in color, while great horned owls in Central America can be a deep chocolatey brown. These fluctuations in appearance allow the different populations of great horned owls to stealthily blend into their specific territory and conceal themselves from their prey. An incredible collection of animals that are uniquely designed to be masters of disguise are the leaf-tailed geckos. From the genus Uroplatus, these geckos have bodies that bear a remarkable similarity to tree bark and tails that resemble dead leaves. These leafy appendages often include lines that resemble leaf veins, as well as portions of their tail that can even mimic leaf decay or insect damage. Their leafy bodies frequently have fringed edges that allow them to better conceal themselves. They also exhibit a wide range of colors from beige, gray, and brown, and frequently have patterns of earthy greens which can appear as patches of moss or lichen. These small nocturnal reptiles, which are found only on the island of Madagascar, will often spend the day hanging motionless from branches or hidden among a cluster of dead leaves. They also have numerous behaviors that allow them to evade predators. They will flatten their bodies against tree branches to reduce their body's shadow, and can even voluntarily shed their tail in order to trick a predator. The stick insect includes a collection of species exhibiting some truly deceptive natural camouflage. Also commonly known as the walking stick, these insects have bodies specifically designed to mimic sticks, twigs, and branches. In fact, for many species, their eggs even resemble seeds. These insects can range in size from tiny species measuring only a half an inch to the largest variety, which can reach 21 inches with its legs outstretched. While some species of stick bugs can be brightly colored, it is more common that these insects mimic their habitats in various shades of twig-like browns and grays or plant-like greens. Many species of walking sticks also include fake buds and leaf scars, making their camouflage all the more realistic. These creatures are mostly nocturnal, remaining motionless for most of the day on branches and under plants. However, some of these amazing insects even have gentle swaying movements that are designed to simulate wind blowing through the branches. Another fascinating group of camouflage creatures are the walking leaves or leaf insects. From the genus Phyllium, there are more than 50 species of flat, usually green insects that are known for their striking leaf-like appearance. The camouflage of these insects is extremely elaborate, with the color and shape of the leaves being replicated with near perfection. The leafy wings and legs of many of these species possess veins that are positioned in the same fashion as leaves, and will often include irregular edges that appear as bite marks or leaf decay. When walking, these leaf insects will also slowly rock their bodies rhythmically to mimic the movement of leaves blowing in the breeze. Young leaf insects closely resemble the adults except for their reddish-brown color. They shortly turn green, however, after they begin their diet of exclusively green leaves. The orchid mantis got its name from the commonly held belief that because of its bright, beautiful coloring of white, purple, and pink, it was designed to be camouflaged on the delicate petals of orchid flowers. However, recent studies have now revealed that rather than being hidden on a flower, this unique mantis is instead mimicking a flower. This predatory insect is actually a deadly lure designed to look like a flower to pollen-seeking insects. The research demonstrated that flower-seeking insects approached the orchid mantises more than real flowers, which clearly reveals that the mantises themselves are actually attractive to insects rather than simply being camouflaged by the flowers. This kind of predation is known as aggressive mimicry, in which the prey is unknowingly drawn toward the predator. The mantises frequently position themselves on green leaves near flowers. In this way, when seen from above, they appear very convincingly to have the shape and color of a generalized flower. Once in position, they need only to wait for the pollen-hunting insects to arrive. The pygmy seahorse is one of the newest species of seahorse to be identified. In fact, their camouflage is so effective they were actually discovered by being accidentally placed into captivity while attached to a coral sea fan. Pygmy seahorses are the smallest species of seahorse in the world, with adults typically measuring only 2.5 centimeters, which is about the height of 2 grains of rice. Pygmy seahorses are actually so small they cannot handle the ocean current and spend their entire life using their prehensile tail to cling to specific species of coral sea fan. These minuscule sea creatures come in several colors, and the juveniles of these seahorses can actually change their color to better match their surroundings. Large, bulbous, calcified tubercles cover this species' body and match the color and shape of the polyps on its host species of coral sea fan. Because of this remarkably accurate camouflage, these seahorses can easily avoid predators and spend their day feeding on even tinier creatures passing by in the ocean currents. Chameleons are another remarkable creature with camouflaging capabilities that scientists only recently began to fully understand. For a long time, it was falsely believed that chameleons changed their color to blend into their surroundings and thus conceal themselves. It is now understood, however, that their usual standard coloring features various shades of green, which provide natural forest camouflage. It is only when a chameleon is threatened, agitated, or trying to attract a mate that they begin to display their extravagant array of colors. Even more fascinating than a chameleon's remarkable ability to change colors is the staggeringly complex process by which this is accomplished. Just below the chameleon's heavily textured skin lies 2 layers of cells called iridophores, which contain an intricate lattice pattern of microscopic guanine nanocrystals. These specifically designed crystals refract different wavelengths of the visible light spectrum based on the particular arrangement and proximity of the crystals to one another. Chameleons can manipulate their dramatic color displays by contracting or expanding the sophisticated membrane-like crystalline lattice beneath their skin. One special creature that makes use of both mimicry and behavior in order to protect itself is the spicebush swallowtail caterpillar. This caterpillar hatches from eggs that are laid on the sassafras tree. As it feeds and grows, this uniquely adorned caterpillar develops precisely arranged yellow, black, and white spots that look incredibly similar to the eyes of the green vine snake. While feeding, this caterpillar frequently rolls the leaves of the sassafras tree into tubes in order to hide itself from view of potential predators. If by chance the caterpillar is discovered by any would-be predators, they are surprised to be staring face to face with a snake. But if large eye spots are not convincing enough, this caterpillar has a few defense behaviors to keep it from being eaten. When threatened, this small caterpillar will elevate its head and deploy small, hidden, bifurcated antennae that resemble a snake's tongue. At the same time, it releases an extremely potent chemical odor that, when combined with the snake tongue illusion, becomes a powerful repellent against any predator. In all the animal kingdom, squids, octopuses, and cuttlefish are unmatched in their extraordinary camouflage capabilities. These cephalopods have the widest range of possible appearances and the fastest speeds in which they can achieve them. This amazing video, captured by marine biologist Roger Hanlon, demonstrates the phenomenal ability with which an octopus can conceal itself. In addition to their exceptional skill in changing the color and patterning of their skin, cephalopods can also manipulate the texture of their skin as well. It accomplishes this by altering the relative size of tiny protrusions on their skin called papillae. These allow the octopus to create a diverse collection of textures from small bumps to tall spikes. Cephalopods also have a wide range of control over the colors they can display. Specialized skin cells called chromatophores are essentially microscopic muscle-controlled ink sacs. These tiny sacs contain a range of possible colors whose relative value can be changed by expanding or contracting the cell. Even more astounding is the fact that octopuses make these adjustments to match their environment based on sight and can elicit these changes in only a few seconds or less. All of these animals and countless others like them are incredibly exciting evidence for the existence of God because they exhibit artistic design in an absolutely indisputable fashion. We can see evidence for God when we acknowledge the design of these animals from an aesthetic standpoint, that is, how they look, especially in comparison to their natural environment. Animals like these and countless others that employ camouflage or mimicry beautifully exhibit design in an artistic sense. The way in which they perfectly match colors, textures, shapes, and patterns simply cannot be accounted for from a naturalistic standpoint. This could not just happen by chance. And if there is a reason for something, then there is also purpose. Purpose does not and could not simply arise from undirected, random, natural processes. There is an inherent intentionality in having one object look like another, even more so when those objects are living organisms that grow and change over their lifespan. And achieving this is not an easy thing to accomplish. Ask any beginning art student. It takes skill and intelligence to know how to elegantly shape a form to resemble another pre-existing object. It takes skill and intelligence to match the subtle nuances of shades of a very specific color. It takes skill and intelligence to compose sophisticated patterns that duplicate the results of light and shadow on textured organic surfaces. It takes an artist to do these things with such expert precision. Animals mimicking predators demonstrate another fascinating level of complexity of design, in that the copycat design has to be so convincing that it will elicit an escape response in the minds of the would-be attacker. Surely it must be logical reactions must be the byproduct of an intelligent agent. The accomplishment of all these various patterns and displays becomes even more stunning and impressive when it is remembered that creating these designs requires billions of chemical and genetic sequences to be executed perfectly on a microscopic scale. Clearly, these kinds of things don't just happen. Clearly, these animals speak volumes about the wisdom, power, and creativity of our designer. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom have you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. For you are great and do wondrous things. You alone are God. But ask the beasts, and they will teach you, the birds of the heavens, and they will tell you, or the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you, and the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind.